Hi, I'm Karen Warsh at the Institute for International Business and Center for International Business Education and Research at CU Denver. At the IIB Cyber, we promote the advanced study of teaching of international business, international studies, and related fields. Today, I am super excited to introduce you to Gavin O'Toole, who will be telling us more about how he got involved in international business and his company. Gavin?
Thank you, Karen. I'm really happy to be a part of the series and looking forward to this experience and sharing a little bit about my journey in international business and my current role at DaVita as Senior Manager of International IT Operations. So, if you'd like me to go into things right away, I prepared a brief presentation, and we'll go through a little bit of my background, our international vision at DaVita, how we've grown the global village until about 7-8 years ago. We were a purely domestic U.S. company. Some of the challenges and benefits we've experienced along that journey, our current global IT strategy, and a conclusion where if there's any questions that you'd like to ask Karen or follow up, we can certainly do that. And along the way, let's keep it interactive as well.
Great. Yeah, that'll be fantastic.
So starting off a little bit about me. I grew up outside of Minneapolis, Minnesota. Typical childhood, especially in Minnesota. I grew up playing hockey. My favorite pizza place actually happened to sponsor our hockey team, so it was a great synergy for me there. I have one sibling, my sister Bridget, great friend. She lives in Boston with her husband now. And my undergraduate degree, I went to the University of Minnesota, big Golden Gopher fan. If I'm a Minnesotan, I almost have to be a Bob Dylan fan as well. I've also spent a little bit of time living overseas. I've spent a lot of time traveling to a number of different markets and countries. I spent the better part of 1.5 years living in the Philippines in an island called Cebu, and I started a web development and creative design firm with 2 entrepreneurs out of Salt Lake City. Definitely a great experience, really wonderful people, and I think I use that experience on a lot of day-to-day activities I have today. And then more recent, I have executive MBA from the University of Colorado and a master's in international business through CU Denver. So all good experiences that have helped shape me and taught me lessons that I utilize on a daily basis. Some of my inspiration to go into international business is I think just a lot of humanity and cultures in general. I think anything that we're curious about is something that's worth pursuing. And I think for me, I've always been fascinated by the world, you know, our people and different cultures. So I'll touch on a few of the pictures here. The upper left-hand corner is a couple in Bogota, Colombia. I've spent a lot of time in Bogota launching our operations for DaVita there. The next picture is a family seat from my mom's side of the family in Ireland. It's now a college there, and so that's kind of fun. Center picture, a little bit of my time in the Philippines, and a lot of different places from around the world that are significant in one reason or another. I think right now, the picture of Robben Island in South Africa stands out to me, and maybe Brandenburg Gate in Berlin. So a couple fun pictures, and then on the bottom right-hand corner, the second picture from the bottom right, that's actually, I think it shows about relationships and how relationships can form in a lot of different ways across cultures and in unique experiences. And that there is basically Nelson Mandela's prison guard. So kind of a unique relationship. Obviously, he was incarcerated for a long period of time, but he developed a very close relationship with one of the guards at the prison, and they remained good friends until his passing. So I thought that was a neat experience to be able to interact with him and have a little of that experience and see how relationships can spring from a lot of different situations. Moving to the next slide, nature is also a big piece of it. So not just people and cultures, but also a lot of different natural beauty, animals, creatures, and so these days I spend about a third of my time in Denver, about a third of my time in Steamboat Springs, and about a third of my time on the road in different markets around the world. Any questions before we move on, Karen?
I don't think so. This is all so fascinating, and especially for us animal lovers. I love animals around the world too, so.
Yeah, I actually, in Steamboat yesterday on my daily walk, I was just coming up maybe about 100 yards from my place, and about 20 feet in front of me, a moose came out. And moose can actually be pretty dangerous because they're pretty territorial and don't see all that well. So if I was about 20 seconds earlier, maybe I'd have some bandages on right now during this, but all turned out well. But it was definitely, they're majestic creatures, and it was really neat.
Yeah, that is neat. So, yeah, tell us about DaVita and how you got to DaVita. What brought you there, and what really inspired you to be part of the DaVita global team?
Yeah, certainly. So I think my career path has been a little bit unconventional. When I was at the University of Minnesota, I was going to school for chemical engineering. I was hired by AT&T while I was still in school. And so I went back to finish my degree a few years later and switched my degree to global business management. While I was at AT&T, I was supporting global customers like Cargill out of Minnesota. They're based out of Minnesota, and they're the largest private company in the United States, $100+ billion a year of annual revenue. So gave me a little bit of taste of international business, and then I moved out to Colorado from Denver, and supported Galileo International, which was a big travel and data network that was really integrated with the travel industry and airlines, and so very international. And then from that, I went to a joint venture that AT&T did with British Telecom called Concert, and I supported Apple Computer and created some of their Follow This On Apple Care customer service model, and then rolled out and opened the first 2 Apple stores. And so really got a taste of how they operate, how they look at things globally, how they utilize technology for some of those global services and support that they offer. So a little bit roundabout. From AT&T, I worked at a company called StarTech, which is a business process outsourcer. They provide contact centers, and they were really heavily focused on telcos and cable at the time. So Comcast, T-Mobile, TNT, those kind of companies. And initially all our sites were in the domestic US. Then we expanded into about 7-8 sites and into Canada. And then shortly after that, we opened a number of facilities in the Philippines. And that was my first experience in the Philippines over about 3 to 4 years, maybe making about 15, 20 trips to the Philippines and starting up our operations there. And that brought me to Ripe Concepts, the venture I mentioned that I started with some entrepreneurs in Cebu, living there for about 18 months, and then came across the domestic U.S. For those who aren't familiar with dialysis, when you're getting kidney dialysis, basically, unless you get a transplant, you're having that dialysis treatment 3 times a week, basically for the rest of your life. So we get to know our patients very well. It's something that takes about 4 hours. So having a clinic somewhere in a relatively close proximity to you is relatively important. And so I worked on our domestic operation for about a year or so. We started expanding internationally, and my CIO created an international position for me within our IT team to support the launch of our international business, and that's where I've been ever since. So, you know, if there's a lesson to learn or something to share from my experience, it is kind of following that curiosity, things you're interested in. What I'm doing now is, you know, quite a different career than what I would have had doing chemical engineering and some of the roles I would have taken out of college on that path. But I think being curious, being interested, voicing your interest in those roles. Like I said, when I came to DaVita, we weren't an international or multinational company. And I performed some roles for about a year and a half until that opportunity came around. So it's not always the obvious opportunity, but I've really enjoyed my experience at DaVita since I've been there, and glad to share a little bit about that.
Yeah, tell us more about, like, what's a day in your life at DaVita like? Like, what do you actually do? Like, what does it mean to be Gavin O'Toole at DaVita?
Yeah, that gets really that's there's some good and bad, like everything, but it's exciting. It's something a little bit different every day, and I think that's one of the things I enjoy the most. I shared our global footprint here. This is a little bit dated. We divested the India market maybe about 6 months or so ago. So we're no longer in India, but we do have operations in the UK now. That's actually where our international leadership team is based, and it's centralized out of London. And we have a number of business development activities ongoing where I would be surprised if we don't enter at least another market or two before the end of this calendar year. So my day-to-day activities are pretty varied. I'm responsible for our entire international IT operations. So things as simple as how do we provide desktop support? How do our clinical teammates, how are they supported with, you know, having the right PCs and laptops, clinical systems, and, you know, things as simple as, you know, what happens if a printer jams at a clinic, and how do they get support? So I work with vendor partners who provide some of those day-to-day type services. And we also look at longer term strategic initiatives, how we manage these operations most effectively, how we provide the best quality of service to our patients, how do we bring the cost of the services we provide down, so maybe markets that it wouldn't be that it wouldn't be possible to provide services today, markets that are underserved. How do we bring that cost down? How do we utilize technology where we can maybe go into those underserved markets and provide these services to patients that are lacking them today? So, like I said, if you're getting dialysis, you get it 3 times a week. It's a life-sustaining treatment. So our patients don't have the luxury of being able to choose to stay home. They need to come into the clinics and get their dialysis. Basically, they're cleaning the toxins out of their blood. And if they're not doing that, like for most of us, our kidney does on a daily basis, those toxins build up and have extremely adverse effects that can have complications all the way up to death. So, supporting them in these times and giving them some tools and solutions that they can leverage to minimize the impact of the virus has been probably 80–90% of my time for the last few months.
Yeah, sure. I bet. So since you've been in this position, your international position with DaVita, how has your position evolved? Like, has it really evolved from the beginning of this international position through now? And I know that, you said you might be or you're probably going to be entering a few different markets even by the end of this calendar year, and then with COVID and all of these other things. But if it was not COVID and things were kind of normal, how has your position evolved since you started in the international side for DaVita?
Sure. So when I came into our international operations, we had 3 clinics globally, 2 that were joint ventures and 1 that was our own wholly owned clinics. Right now, we have about 180 clinics in 11 different markets. So we've grown our international footprint quite a bit. The domestic U.S., we have about 40% of the dialysis market. It's unlikely that will grow much further because of regulatory and antitrust type considerations. So most of our growth as a village will be outside of the domestic U.S. and in the rest of the world. So as you can see on the map, we've gone into 2 countries in South America, Colombia and Brazil. Brazil's our newest market. We entered Brazil about 2 years ago. It's also already our largest and quickest growing market. We've grown significantly in Germany and Poland. We have about 50 clinics in both of those markets. Singapore, we've only had a handful of clinics until recently, but there's a lot of activity. I think we're scheduled to open up about 7 or 8 clinics this year, and there's a lot of ongoing business development there. So a lot of it has been business development. A lot of it has been integrating with those acquisitions that we've made. Most of the markets we've gone into have been through acquisition. So a lot of integration from a technology side and also just overall operational process and procedure. We've also developed our team. So either bringing people across on the IT team that were maybe already in a function as part of the business we acquired, or actually recruiting and hiring and onboarding teammates within that global IT team. So today we have about 25 international IT teammates. That compares to domestically in the US, we have about 2,000 IT teammates. So we're a lean team. We operate, we're part of, DaVita, a global Fortune 200 company. But internationally, we operate very nimbly. We operate more as a startup. So small, lean teams, quick turnaround, and new challenges every day. So it might be bringing an acquisition on board. It might be implementing a new clinical system. It might be a new regulatory rule that we have to address. So that's been a big piece of Europe for the last year and a half or so. They have their GDPR data privacy standards, a lot of things around a right to be forgotten, a right for people to own their data. And so in a healthcare environment, there's lots of pros and cons to that. Seeing our patients as often as we do, we know a lot about our patients. Even if you go in to get, heart surgery or something major like that, you usually have that procedure. You might have some follow-up visits, but then you're pretty much back to your life. We see our patients 3 times a week, irregardless, and so we learn a lot about that patient with their chronic kidney disease. But we also learn a lot of other things about comorbidities that they may have as well. And so there's opportunity to share that data, and we could maybe go to the primary care physician and say with great accuracy, hey, you know what, we've seen X, Y, and Z. There's a very good chance that this patient's going to have a heart issue, or some issues with their breathing, or issues with their vascular system. And so there's certainly considerations with data privacy and sharing that clinical data. And we have to be very careful with how it's shared. So today, mostly we share population data because of regulatory requirements. So we can share it with like a university that can use that data to develop better treatments and a lot of different things. It's hard for DaVita to share that data and say, hey, you know what, Gavin was in the clinic. There's a good chance he's going to have this issue. We'd like to give you a warning of that. So it works both ways, and it's challenging, and you understand the data protections. It's also, we're trying to find creative ways where we can still protect that data, where we're not sharing or breaching people's individual privacy, but still trying to help them and improve their care as much as possible. So it's a balancing act, and it's a really unique space right now, and presents new opportunities daily.
Yeah, that's a lot for sure. And tricky on the balancing the privacy versus the best care opportunities, right?
Yep. So, I think our way is to find out that we, how we can address both of those. And, it's a little bit different landscape, market by market. The GDPR requirements that are in Europe today, Brazil is implementing data privacy standards that are very similar. They're based off of the GDPR requirements. I think California in the States has data privacy regulations that are very similar to GDPR in Europe. So Europe's kind of at the forefront of it, but we're seeing it expand to a number of different markets, and it's a lot of IT infrastructure, a lot of process and procedure around that. But I think once companies get in a good position, I think it will drive investment that can help not just in the data privacy area, but in in clinical outcomes, in clinical care. So
Yeah.
I think with COVID-19, I think a lot of companies or countries or people have kind of, drawn back into a shell a little bit. And, we certainly understand the importance of trying to protect populations, trying to protect healthcare workers, patients, and at-risk populations. So I think, short term, it's definitely the right thing to do. It'll be interesting to see how, coming out the other side of this, our norms evolve. And I think, one thing from an international perspective and someone who operates in international business is I think short term, this year's definitely unique for me. I haven't traveled to any of our markets this year in 2020 where, at a typical point by June, I've probably done 6 or 8 international visits to some of our markets. And so, although we're reducing that, I think as a team, we're just as tight as ever. I think we can learn a lot cross-border. I think, I hope what comes out of this is a better understanding of how we're all interconnected globally, and our actions in one country or one market impact the activities and follow up in another market, and that even if we close off borders short term for things to prevent transmission, I think collectively as a global society, that we're all closer at the end of this, sharing what works in one country, learning from other market successes and mistakes, and working together to solve this as as one planet and one group of human beings, rather than putting up borders and walls and isolating ourselves. I think we're better coming out of this as a strengthened global team.
As a global village.
Exactly. So a few pictures there. These are the picture on the left is me in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The IT manager that I just hired there, he had started maybe a month before, so I made a trip to visit him, kind of welcome him on board, make sure he was getting the support he needed. It was just myself and Abdul Rahman, and he took me to a kind of one of their historic restaurants, and was very excited that I was coming to see him. And so I think that was a meal for 2 people. I think that was maybe about 50% of what we were served. It was absolutely amazing. Obviously way too much food. I felt bad, but I guess, sometimes you experience things that you're not used to, and it's a unique and fun and enlightening experience. So we had a good time with it. I think it really helped us kick off our relationship, and now I've known Abdul Rahman for about 4 or 5 years, and great contact both personally and professionally. That's my manager right there, Jason Friday. He's only been I've made about 5-6 trips to Saudi Arabia. He's been there once. So that was us in front of our business office on his single visit there. I think it was about 120 degrees that day. We obviously needed sunglasses. We didn't have them. And after that experience, Jason's signed up for visits to other locations. But I've had a great time in Saudi Arabia. Different culture, different norms, like a lot of other countries we go to, and that's part of the experience. Expanding some of your boundaries, doing some things that maybe you wouldn't do in your own backyard, and meeting new people and making new friends. So that's great. And then in the communication, I think it's hard to read, but on the right side, that's actually in Denver at our office here. And Jason's reading a Spanish-English dictionary. So a lot of times we have a lot of different cultures, different languages on our calls, and we're not really fluent in anything other than English. We can kind of stumble our way through things. So sometimes we just do it the old-fashioned way, and quickly are like, what did they just say? But people really help, and in a lot of our markets, we find that English is the language of business. So we could be in an office in Singapore, office in Amsterdam, and initially I thought a lot of the teammates were speaking English to accommodate us, and it was more so that they all spoke a different native language, but the one common language they all spoke was English. So for them to all be able to interact and speak together and communicate, it was easier for them to speak English. So so that helps us on some of these visits. That said, I definitely encourage, if people have the opportunity to learn a language formally through your education or through classes or online tools, things like that, it certainly helps. But if that's your concern about doing business internationally and operating in some of these markets, with rare exception, if you want to support a multinational organization, if you're interested in international business, don't let that be a detriment that prevents you from doing it. Certainly round out that skill set if you can, but in my experience, if you have an interest, that curiosity, you know, good ideas can be communicated in any language.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And it's a pretty good lead into one of our student questions, actually, which is what kinds of knowledge, skills, abilities, and experiences are most valuable for job applicants hoping to work with you?
Yeah, you know, I'll circle back on that curiosity.
Sure.
I think if you have an interest in something, usually there's other people have interest in those things as well, and usually that creates an opportunity. You know, I enjoy drinking beer, and probably nobody's gonna pay me to drink beer, but there's probably a lot of things I could do that are associated with it. I could get a job in the hospitality industry, and in Denver we have a lot of craft breweries. You know, you could do things with either the brewing, with the business side of things, with the marketing of those entities. So, you know, if there's something you have interest in, that curiosity is very helpful. And then I think in my experience going to these markets, you know, when I land somewhere and meet with the team for the first time, they're excited about this new opportunity. You know, DaVita is going into a new market, and they're very proud of what they've established, and they're very excited about helping DaVita grow, and, you know, having that particular market be a important piece of the DaVita Global Village. And so, you know, asking some questions, having interest in what they're doing, what they see as their challenges, what they see as their, you know, their opportunities. And then I think one thing that's really important too is just the people side of things. You know, in the US, it's not uncommon for, you know, to come into an office building, get shuttled into a conference room, and for the meeting to get kicked off, you're in that meeting for an hour or two, and you leave, and you hardly know anything about people. In a lot of markets, DaVita operates in that personal side of the relationship is very important. And in a lot of cultures, you wouldn't dream of doing business with someone if you didn't have a personal relationship first. So, and that can be really fun. That can be interesting. That can be going out to dinner the first night and, you know, finding out about people's background, about their family, about their friends, about their upbringing, you know, where they live, what they like about their, you know, about their country, what they think is really neat about their culture. And it usually helps, in my experience, really drive that relationship, because people are easier to like if they're, you know, if they show interest in others. And you know, the nice piece of that is you make a lot of friends, you learn a lot about people and cultures that you maybe didn't know, and you get some really neat, amazing experiences. So so on this page, this is in the APAC region, China, Malaysia, and I think the APAC leadership team picture is taken in Singapore. So a lot of really neat people, and I think you know, DaVita is a much better village because of these different diverse cultures and markets that we now operate in. So that learning can go both ways. It can go, you know, from the United States to London, or it can go from, you know, Malaysia to the United States, or maybe from Brazil to Germany, and all of us working together, I think, makes us collectively a better team.
It's interesting that, you know, with the skills and knowledge, everything you said were all soft skills, which I've been trying to impress on students and even myself, you know, since day one, is it's not all about the hard skills. Like, you didn't just say accounting is the most important thing you could need for your job, right? It's learn how to talk to people and connect with people and build these relationships, because that'll get you really far. So. Yep,
100%. And I spend a lot of time recruiting teammates when we move into these markets. It's either convincing the teammates that we're bringing on board that, hey, they're coming into this new DaVita entity, and that's a good thing, not a bad thing, and helping them address their questions and concerns, you know, and kind of building that excitement around it. Or if we don't have those resources, going into a market that maybe at the time we don't know a whole lot about, and making sure we find the right fit. And that cultural fit's very important. At DaVita, it's about caring for our patients and our teammates. And we can teach hard skills, but if it was a choice for me before, you know, if it's a choice choosing between the right individual, the right cultural fit, someone who I just really feel is a solid person who fits that mold, or a technical skill set, I would take the people side first, hands down, every single time.
I fully agree. It's fantastic.
So, and you know, it doesn't hurt to have skill sets. I think, you know, some things trending in healthcare now, I think there were some questions on that. I think, you know, there's items around data privacy that we mentioned. I think telemedicine, distance learning, all of those skill sets are greatly in demand right now. You know, in some markets, the nephrologist, the doctor who provides dialysis, there aren't many of them. So if you're in a country, especially if it's large geographically, it may be hard to have a local nephrologist, and that may be a limit to care. If we can do things with telemedicine, where we have a clinic and that nephrologist can, you know, call in from another town or maybe even another country and provide those services, we can extend our care, and we can reduce the cost of that care. So technology can definitely be an enabler. I think where we're all working from home today, or a lot of us are working from home, and you know, the office concept has changed. We can use tools like we're using today, like Zoom or you know, WebEx, different things like that, where, you know, I bet a lot of us had never even heard of Zoom a year ago at this time, and now it's a household name. And you know, I'm calling my mom and my dad on it, and having happy hours with them, and doing different things. And you know, not the most technology savvy people in the world, but they love it. And if I can't see them face to face, it's a great way to see them. And you can apply those technologies to healthcare and to a lot of other business functions as well. So yeah, we touched on some of these. There are different challenges and benefits. You know, different reimbursement models, different local regulations. You know, it can be harder to manage a team that's spread across the world rather than all just down the hall from each other. But it also provides opportunities. I think, you know, that's why we have the benefits here too. I think you know, can get some different thoughts and ideas. You can get a lot of innovation. You can extend reach, because sometimes you have to get creative just because of landscape or geography or local regulations. And so we see a lot of benefits from the challenges as well.
Yeah, you always have to find the good parts, right? Making lemonade from lemons.
Yep, certainly. And I know we're getting close on time. I'm certainly available for as many questions as we have.
Okay.
But to kind of sum it up, one thing I say is be ready for anything. If you can be nimble, if you can be open-minded, these pictures might seem a little bit awkward or crazy. And believe me, when I saw them firsthand, I probably thought the same thing, and maybe even more so. But the picture on the left is our business office in Bogota, Colombia, and it's basically kind of a residential house that they've turned into offices. They connected two houses, and it's actually a really nice office. From the outside, it looks a little unconventional, but inside it's really neat. And in part of the renovation process, they ordered a bunch of new doors. And so it was maybe my first day down there, I think. And I just asked, I said, hey, where's the restroom now? I don't remember where it was last time or if it's in the same spot. And they were like, oh, it's just, upstairs and, take a left. And so I came down, and this door is part of a big open like atrium area. It's not like at the end of the hallway. It's not hidden anywhere. And I was like, what's going on? This is something I've never seen in Colombia. And I was standing there, just kind of paused for a minute. And our country manager, Ricardo, came out, saw me looking kind of puzzled, and he started laughing. And he said, oh, I'm really sorry, Gavin. He said, we ordered these doors a couple weeks ago, and there was a mistake. And most of the doors on the offices have windows, but there's some doors, like for the bathrooms and stuff, that are normal solid doors. And there was a mistake in the order, and they installed all of these. So we have new doors coming in. He's like, there's another bathroom down the hall here that, doesn't have the glass door. This should be swapped out in a couple days. But, I didn't know if it was some cultural norm that I wasn't aware of, and I was
Yeah.
like, boy, how am I to handle this? But so usually there's an answer, but sometimes you don't know, and you don't have to be afraid of making a fool of yourself or getting laughed at. Like, everyone always helps you out, and it's good. And then the slide on the right, this is in the States, my own homegrown culture. And I was traveling, so I think I was in Germany at the time, and we needed to put some slides together for a deck for our international leadership team. And so my CIO, who's based out of Denver, and my boss were in Denver. And so they had a conversation on a whiteboard, and my CIO sketched this out. And this is basically our international technology strategy. So he took a picture of this, emailed it to me. I got it when I woke up in Germany, and wasn't going to have a chance to interact with them. And so needed to decipher this and try to put it into coherent slides. So it's not always the culture. It can just be the environment. It can be whatever. And so sometimes you have to be nimble. Sometimes you just have to kind of wing it. But, if you are ready for anything, if you're open-minded, if you're not worried about stubbing your toe or making some mistakes, usually you're going to end up in the right place at the end of the day.
So included with all this really great advice, did you have a mentor while in school or just in your career as a whole that gave you some advice, and what was it?
Yeah, I think it's really good to have a mentor, and I've been really fortunate that I've had a number of good mentors. I think, it started at home with my family and my extended family, both my mom and dad, my sister and my cousins, my aunts and uncles, I think have been great examples for me. in schools. I think I've had a number of great contacts, starting back at the University of Minnesota here in Colorado. I think Manuel's been a great resource and a great confidant for a lot of questions. So I think that's been very helpful. And then within my career at AT&T, I think my original teams were very mature, very experienced resources, strong professionals, very good people. And I think, I'll touch on that again. Align yourself with good people. There are people who are successful who may not be the best mentor for you, but most of the people I know who are good people are also very successful and also very good mentors. So find those people who stand out, find those people who care for your coworkers, who care for those around them. And I think that's very helpful. One of my first bosses at AT&T provided me a lot of opportunity to get a lot of training, to learn from people that were, 2 or 3 decades my senior. And I'll never forget that. And as a general manager, that didn't really benefit him directly at that time, but he knew he was doing the right thing. My first manager here in Denver, a good piece of advice that he gave me is, he said, try to eliminate your job. If you're doing that, you're doing the right thing. If you're just trying to stay comfortable where you're at and kind of muddle along, eventually you'll get replaced or automated out of this. But if you're trying to eliminate your job, usually you're climbing the ladder. You're taking a process or service that you're providing and you're making it more efficient. You're finding a way to get rid of that need. And so then you can go on to higher level, more complex challenges and solutions. And so it naturally works for you. So I think sometimes we're scared about kind of cannibalizing our role or cannibalizing our team. But if we're really looking at it as, how do I eliminate this? How do I make this where it doesn't need to happen, or it could be automated, or it could happen more efficiently? There's always more opportunities out there, and they're usually more exciting, bigger opportunities than you initially had. So I think that's been a good piece of advice that I definitely try to put into my day-to-day decisions and actions.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's definitely the opposite of, job security, right? It's like job security through growing your job instead of keeping your job. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does. And if I use a real basic example for technology, we could say 20 years ago, I could have been a printer tech and made a bunch of money going around installing printers and networking them and doing different things like that. Now at DaVita these days, we try not to print anything if we can help it. But there's technologies that have replaced that. We've said, hey, why don't we install a Cisco telepresence, apparatus, cameras and things like that, teleconferencing at our clinics. So instead of, mailing reams of paper or making the clinic print out all of this, how about we just all talk face to face and we have that interaction? People can answer questions real time. And, where that printer tech job went away, in today's world, if you're installing Zoom or you're installing telepresence or WebEx or those different solutions, you could go, name your price anywhere, because there's so many opportunities in distance learning and telemedicine, in, remote workforce and all of those things. So, eliminating that need for printers didn't get rid of your job. It provided a bunch more opportunity.
Yeah, very good example.
So this has been a ton of fun. I really appreciate the opportunity. Were there any questions, Karen, that we didn't cover? I'd be happy to make sure if students had questions that I can give it my best shot at least.
How about, I think this might be the last one actually. What are the most effective strategies for seeking a position in this field?
So I don't think there's one silver bullet, and you know, that's both good and bad. I mean, it's good to be able to wrap your head around something and say, hey, I'm going to work towards that and then achieve this goal. But the reality is I think in international business, there's unlimited opportunities. So I think if you focus on one thing, you may limit a lot of opportunities. Like I said, you know, I was in school for chemical engineering. AT&T hired me because of some vague interest I had in data networks at the time and doing early websites and stuff like that. And it's created an entire career for me. So I would say follow your interest, follow your passion. If a piece of that is cultural, if it is, you know, connecting people, bringing teams together, supporting people with some of those technologies or process solutions like we talked about, like telemedicine or distance learning or remote workforce, get in, you know, in a role. And I think from inside, you have a lot better visibility than you do from the outside, and see what that company's doing. I mean, you may want to work for a company that's a multinational. You may have opportunity with a small startup that doesn't have any international experience at all. And they say, hey, you know what? We don't know how to do this, so you probably know how to do it just as well. And they throw you the reins. You know, I would have never believed a few years back that a Fortune 200 company would say, hey, you know what, manage our international IT operations. You know, I still kind of don't believe it. But the reality is, you know, the people who know how to do it are the people who experience it firsthand. And so get yourself inside, get yourself in an organization that you like, that organization, you're interested in that organization, you're excited about what that organization does, and then express that interest and say, hey, if there are opportunities to support our international teams or to expand our international footprint, or you know, you can find indirect ways too. We talk about you know, video conferencing and stuff. I think that was stuff that we were doing at DaVita a few years back. It wasn't really for international, but we work a lot with our teleconferencing people now, and they're not international badge teammates, but they do a lot of the same things we do. You know, I can say, hey guys, do you want to get on a plane with me and go to Malaysia and teach us to them firsthand? And, you know, most of the time it's absolutely. So, you know, leverage your skills, follow your interest, and then share that interest. People can't read your mind. So talk to your managers, talk to the teams you support. And when there's appropriate opportunity, express that interest. And you'll be surprised how often that people circle back and come back to you, like my CIO did, and said, hey, you know, I know you have a lot of international experience, Gavin. We haven't done anything internationally. You know, would you be interested if we created this position? And, you know, it's been a lot of fun. There's certainly a lot of days where I bang my head against the wall, but I'd be doing that in any role. So, you know, I love the variety. I love the challenge. And if you guys are interested in something similar, follow that interest, associate yourself with good people, with good organizations, and the international opportunities are certainly almost unlimited.
That is so fantastic. Thank you so much, Gavin. This has been truly insightful, and I think it'll be really great for all the students looking into both IT as well as international IT, and really what it's like if they are able to get into the field, or if it's even a field, you know, that they're interested in now they know more about it. So that's really the goal here. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. It's been so fantastic.
It's been a lot of fun, Karen. Thanks for providing the opportunity.
Yeah, of course.